Good morning, my friend. Let me ask you something from the heart. Have you ever sat quietly in your kitchen, maybe with a warm cup of coffee in your hands, and just felt whole, peaceful, content with the silence around you? If that sounds familiar, then you're not just comfortable being alone. You may actually be thriving in it, and you're not the only one. Today, we're going to talk about 5 kinds of women who are happiest living alone. These are not lonely women. These are strong, wise, grounded women who have reached a point in life where they no longer need to explain themselves, compromise their space, or wait for someone else to validate their choices. Whether you've chosen solitude after a long marriage, or you've always enjoyed your own company, or you've just begun to realize how rich life can be when you live it on your own terms, this is for you. We're going to explore 5 unique types of women, each with her own story, her own strengths, and her own kind of peace. By the end of this conversation, I think you'll see yourself in at least one of them, maybe even all 5. So, if you've ever felt like you were different because you enjoy your own space, your own rhythm, your own life, I want you to know you're not different, you're wise, and you're exactly where you're meant to be. 1. The Justice Woman, the Decider. Let's begin with the first kind of woman who is not only content living alone, she is absolutely thriving in it. I call her the Justice Woman. Now, that name might sound a little dramatic at first, but stay with me. Once you hear her story, you might realize it sounds a whole lot like your own. The Justice Woman is clear. She's confident. And most of all, she's decisive. This is a woman who has spent a lifetime learning how to trust her own judgment. Whether she's choosing what to cook for dinner or deciding whether to move across the country, she doesn't hesitate. She knows how to weigh the facts, listen to her gut, and move forward with clarity. What sets her apart is that she doesn't feel the need to consult someone else before she acts. For her, independence isn't just a preference, it's a source of peace. She's not rude about it, and she's certainly not cold. In fact, she might be one of the warmest, most generous people you know. But she's also deeply in touch with what she wants, and she doesn't like having to negotiate her needs with someone who might not understand them. Let me tell you about Margaret. Margaret is 73 years old and used to be a high school principal. After retiring, she moved from Boston to Santa Fe, all by herself. When I asked her why, she said, "I just needed more sun in my life." And she meant that in every sense of the word. She told me, "I spent 40 years making decisions for schools, for students, for my family. Now I get to make decisions for me, and only me." There was a quiet joy in her voice when she said it. Not defiance, not bitterness, just calm, earned confidence. For women like Margaret, even the loving opinions of friends or family can start to feel like interference. They don't want to debate their vacation plans, or how they spend their savings, or whether they should renovate the guest room. They've already done the thinking. They've weighed the pros and cons. They've had the conversation with themselves. And that's enough. Some of these women, like Margaret, are fast thinkers. Others are slow processors who mull things over quietly and privately. But whether they make their decisions in a flash or after a long walk alone, they do not need to ask for anyone's blessing. That's not stubbornness. It's sovereignty. They've earned the right to be the sole author of their own lives. And if you're nodding along right now, maybe smiling a little to yourself, then you just might be a justice woman too. You don't resist partnership out of fear or past pain. You simply find your fullest self in solitude. You lead your own life, on your own terms. And that's not just admirable. It's beautiful. So here's to you, dear justice women out there. The deciders, the navigators, the quiet captains of your own ship. Your clarity isn't harsh, it's sacred. And your ability to trust your own inner compass? That's your freedom. 2. The High Priestess, the inner artist. Now let's talk about the second kind of woman who flourishes in solitude. I call her the High Priestess. She is not guided by external noise. Her strength doesn't come from who she's around, but from what she builds within herself. She is quiet, not because she has nothing to say, but because she's always listening to the whispers of her heart, the rhythm of her thoughts, the sacred stillness that many overlook. The High Priestess is the woman who finds joy in the quiet corners of life. She's not trying to be left alone. She simply knows that her soul comes alive when she is. She reads, she writes, she paints, she meditates. She doesn't need constant conversation, background noise, or anyone else's presence to feel fulfilled. In fact, too much interruption can make her feel fragmented, pulled away from her own center. I'd like to tell you about Elaine. Elaine is 68 and a retired music teacher. She lives in a cozy, light-filled home near a small lake in Michigan. Most mornings, she lights a candle, makes herself a cup of strong black tea, and writes in her journal for an hour before the world really begins. Her home is full of soft music, books stacked by the fireplace, and little objects that tell her story. A seashell from the first beach she visited alone, an old teacup from her grandmother, and a painting she started during a winter storm and never finished, because, in her words, it already says what I needed it to. Elaine told me, when I was younger, I thought being alone meant I wasn't wanted. Now, being alone means I have room to want what I truly love. That shift, from isolation to intention, is the essence of the High Priestess. Many women in this category are creative types: artists, writers, knitters, gardeners, dreamers. But creativity here doesn't have to mean producing something. It can mean designing your day around what nourishes you. It's the freedom to follow your curiosity, to nap when you're tired, to stand in the kitchen humming a tune no one else knows. It's the sacred art of living from the inside out. There's also another truth about the High Priestess that we don't often talk about openly, and that's her evolving relationship with intimacy. For some women, especially as they grow older, the need for sexual connection fades. And for some, like Elaine, that comes as a relief, not a loss. She shared with me, "Menopause was like a soft closing door. I used to wonder if I should feel sad about that. But honestly, what I felt was calm, like I had more space in my mind and heart for other kinds of joy." This doesn't mean that High Priestess women are cold or withdrawn. Quite the opposite. They often have a deep, rich well of love for animals, for nature, for beauty, for their community. But they don't seek emotional fulfillment through traditional relationships anymore. They may have had vibrant love lives in the past, or they may have never felt that kind of pull. But where they are now is a place of peace. And peace is no small thing. If you're someone who feels most at home when the world is quiet, if you've ever caught yourself smiling while watering your plants, or writing out your thoughts in a notebook, or simply sitting in the sunlight listening to birdsong, you might just be a High Priestess too. Your joy doesn't need applause. Your love doesn't need proving. You are whole because you honor who you are without apology. So here's to you, the High Priestess. The women who create sacred space with nothing more than intention, who speak to themselves with kindness and to the world with clarity. You don't just survive solitude, you paint it in color and wrap it in warmth. And that, dear one, is a gift only you can give. 3. The nurturer, the reclaimed caregiver. Now let's talk about the third kind of woman who shines brightly in her own company. I call her the nurturer, and chances are you've met her, or maybe you are her. She's the one who always remembered birthdays, who made everyone's plate before sitting down herself, who stayed up late helping a child with homework or comforting a friend through a heartbreak. Her heart is stitched with generosity. For decades, her life may have revolved around the needs of others, but something beautiful happens as time goes on. The nurturer, after giving so much of herself to everyone else, begins to turn that care inward. It doesn't happen all at once. There might be guilt at first, for resting, for saying no, for prioritizing peace over obligation. But slowly, something shifts. She realizes that she's still a caregiver, only now the person she's taking care of is herself. Let me tell you about a woman named Carol. Carol is 71, a retired nurse and a mother of 3. For most of her life, she was the rock everyone leaned on. She cooked every meal, remembered every appointment, and made sure her home was a place where people felt safe. But after her children grew up and moved away, and her husband passed after a long illness, Carol found herself surrounded by silence and unsure what to do with it. At first, she said the quiet felt unbearable. "I didn't know who I was if I wasn't needed," she told me. "It was like the phone stopped ringing, and so did my purpose." But over time, she began to discover something unexpected. She enjoyed cooking just for herself. She started buying flowers for her own kitchen table. She took long walks and started journaling about things she'd always wanted to do, but never made time for. "Now," she said, smiling gently, "I make myself a full breakfast every morning, just like I used to for my family. Only this time, it's for me. Because I matter too." That's the power of the nurturer when she reclaims her care. It's easy for women like Carol to be overlooked. Society tends to reward youth and ambition, not quiet strength and compassion. But make no mistake, these women hold entire families together, entire communities, often without thanks or recognition. And when they begin to recognize their own worth, not through what they give to others, but through the simple act of loving themselves, it is a quiet revolution. The nurturer doesn't stop loving others. That would go against her nature. But she starts setting boundaries. She learns that saying no doesn't make her mean. It makes her whole. She discovers that rest is not laziness, that solitude is not selfishness. She stops pouring from an empty cup and starts filling her own. This woman might find joy in the smallest acts, planting herbs on her windowsill, knitting herself a soft scarf, reading late into the night without feeling guilty. She might light a candle not because company is coming, but because she deserves a beautiful space to breathe and be. She learns to savor the little rituals: a walk after dinner, tea in a real china cup, music from her youth playing softly in the background. If you're a nurturer, you've already mastered the art of care. But now the question is, can you direct some of that tenderness toward the woman in the mirror? Because you are just as worthy of love as anyone you've ever looked after. And when you begin to show up for yourself with the same grace and loyalty you've shown others, that's when life alone stops feeling empty and starts feeling full. So here's to the nurturer, to the women who've given their hearts to others and are now finally giving that same love back to themselves. You're not selfish. You're not forgotten. You're simply stepping into a season of restoration, one where you get to be the one held, honored, and healed. And you deserve every second of it. 4. The Queen of Pentacles, the self-made woman. Now we arrive at the fourth kind of woman who lives well, not just in solitude, but in sovereignty. I call her the Queen of Pentacles. She is calm, steady, and deeply rooted in the life she has built with her own 2 hands. This is a woman who knows the value of $1 because she earned every one of them. And just as importantly, she knows the value of her time, her space, and her freedom. The Queen of Pentacles is not dependent. She may have once shared a life, a bank account, a home, or perhaps she never did. Either way, what matters now is that she knows how to take care of herself, emotionally, spiritually, and financially. She's not afraid of hard work, and she's not afraid of being alone. In fact, the two often go hand in hand. Let me introduce you to Joyce. Joyce is 67, and after a 30-year career in real estate, she now lives in a sunlit home in Oregon filled with art and memories. She spent decades building her business from scratch, pounding the pavement, making cold calls, negotiating with confidence, in a world that wasn't always kind to women with ambition. But she kept going. She raised 2 kids on her own. She paid off her house. And when she finally retired, she didn't look for someone to spend her time with. She looked for how to spend it well. Joyce told me something I've never forgotten. She said, "I didn't work this hard just to share my decisions with someone who hasn't lived this journey with me. I'm not opposed to love, but I'm done with compromise. I want to wake up every morning and know that every choice is mine." That, in essence, is the soul of the Queen of Pentacles. This kind of woman might still be working, or she might be retired. But regardless of her income, the key is that she earned what she has. Her security was not handed to her. She didn't inherit it. She created it. Brick by brick, choice by choice, year by year. And because of that, she guards it with care. This doesn't mean she's stingy. Quite the opposite. The Queen of Pentacles is often one of the most generous women you'll meet. She supports causes that matter to her. She donates, she volunteers, she gives without needing credit. But when it comes to her personal resources, her time, her energy, her home, she's thoughtful. She doesn't let just anyone in. Not because she's closed off, but because she knows exactly how long it took to create this piece, and she won't risk it lightly. She's also very clear about what partnership would mean for her, and what it must not mean. She won't be someone's retirement plan. She won't merge finances out of obligation. She's not looking to be rescued, and she's certainly not looking to be managed. If anything, the Queen of Pentacles is open to companionship, as long as it respects her independence. But if that companionship never comes, she's more than fine. Her life is full of comfort, of control, of quiet victories that no one else might notice, but that she celebrates every day. And here's something else that sets her apart. She often has a dream, a clear personal vision for what her resources are for. Maybe it's travel. Maybe it's supporting young women in science, like my friend Evelyn, who set up a scholarship fund in her hometown. Maybe it's art or gardening, or building a legacy in hospice care or animal rescue. Whatever it is, she didn't just save for security. She saved for meaning. If this sounds like you, if you've worked, planned, sacrificed, and now find joy in the life you've built, then you are most certainly a Queen of Pentacles. You deserve to enjoy every dollar you've earned, every choice you've made, every quiet morning that belongs to no one but you. So, here's to you. To the woman who made her own way and is no longer interested in giving up ground she spent a lifetime claiming. Your independence isn't a defense. It's a declaration. And you don't need anyone to validate your path, because you already know it's paved with strength and it leads exactly where you want to go. 5. The Sage, the Wise Witness. And now we come to the 5th kind of woman who is not just surviving solitude, she's embodying it with grace and wisdom. I call her the Sage. She is the quiet witness, the storyteller, the guide. She doesn't need a full house or constant noise to feel relevant. She carries her value with her, in her voice, her presence, and her perspective. The Sage is a woman who has lived deeply. She has likely faced loss, made hard choices, experienced heartache, and walked through seasons that others could never fully understand. She has seen the best and worst of people, including herself. And through it all, she has gathered not just memories, but meaning. What sets the Sage apart is that she no longer needs to prove anything. She's not building a resume. She's not chasing approval. She's not competing for love or attention. She knows who she is, and her presence alone is a gift to those around her. She may not speak often, but when she does, people listen. Let me tell you about someone I know. Her name is Bernice. She's 76 and lives in a small cabin in the Colorado mountains. She used to be a high school history teacher and spent years leading students through the stories of the past. But in retirement, Bernice has become a different kind of teacher. Once a week, she volunteers at a community center in town, mentoring teenage girls. They ask her about everything: love, family, finding direction. And she never pretends to have all the answers. Instead, she tells them the truth, shaped by a life fully lived. She told me once, they don't need someone perfect. They need someone real. And at this age, I have no interest in being anything but real. That's the energy of the sage. The sage may live alone, but she is rarely lonely. That's because she doesn't see solitude as a void. She sees it as a vantage point. It's a place where she can observe the world with clarity. It's where she reflects, writes, remembers, and makes peace with everything that has come before. For her, life is not about what's next. It's about what's true. Many sages become what I call quiet anchors in their communities. They don't demand attention, but they naturally draw people who crave wisdom. They may lead writing groups, offer spiritual counsel, or simply share their stories at book clubs or over coffee. And often, without even meaning to, they become role models, not for what they've accomplished, but for how they live. They live slowly, deliberately. They know what matters and what doesn't. They're not interested in trends or drama. They've learned to let go of resentment, to release regret, and to befriend silence. There is a calm in them that others can feel, a peace that wasn't given, but earned. And while they may no longer need partnership, many sages are still deeply connected to friends, to neighbors, to younger generations. But those connections are chosen, not out of fear of being alone, but out of the joy of meaningful exchange. The sage knows that solitude can be a temple, a space to hear herself think, to feel her own pulse, to commune with something greater than herself. For some, it's prayer. For others, poetry. For many, it's just the simple act of remembering who they are and what they've come through. This is the kind of woman who can walk into a room and say only a few words, but leave people changed. She doesn't need a partner to complete her. She doesn't need noise to feel alive. She is already whole, not in spite of her solitude, but because of what it's made possible. If you see yourself in the sage, if you find joy in reflection, purpose in stillness, and fulfillment in quiet contribution, then let me tell you something from the bottom of my heart. You are not forgotten. You are not invisible. You are the lighthouse many of us are steering toward. You remind the rest of us that there's a kind of strength that isn't loud, a kind of beauty that doesn't fade, and a kind of power that comes not from having all the answers, but from knowing which questions really matter. So, here's to you, the sage, the witness, the way shower. Your life is not behind you. It is alive in every word you speak, every choice you make, and every gentle, grounded step you take in the world. And in your solitude, you are not diminished. You are refined. You are not alone. You are complete. So, my friend, we've met 5 extraordinary women today. Maybe you saw yourself in one of them. Maybe you saw pieces of yourself in all 5. Maybe you're the justice woman who thrives on clarity and independence, who makes decisions with confidence and doesn't need to check with anyone before building a beautiful life. Or perhaps you're the high priestess, who creates quiet magic behind closed doors, who finds meaning in meditation, journaling, painting, or simply watching the seasons change outside your window. Maybe you're the nurturer, who spent years, or even decades, taking care of others, and who's now learning the quiet, sacred art of caring for herself with the same devotion. Or you might be the Queen of Pentacles, the self-made woman, the planner, the giver, the one who earned her freedom and now protects it, not out of fear, but out of deep self-respect. And maybe, just maybe, you are the sage, the wise one, the calm in the storm, the one who no longer needs to chase anything because she carries her truth with her, wherever she goes. Whichever woman you are, or are becoming, know this: you are not strange for loving your solitude. You're not broken because you're not partnered. You're not less than for choosing peace over noise. You're full. You are radiant. You're exactly where you're meant to be. There's a quiet kind of power in living alone, especially as a woman, because it means you've stepped away from what others told you you should want, and you've moved toward what actually nourishes you. That takes courage. That takes wisdom. That takes heart. And if no one's told you lately, I'm proud of you. I see your life, your choices, your quiet victories, and they matter. So if you enjoyed this conversation, I'd love for you to leave a comment below. Tell me which archetype spoke to you the most. Share a bit of your own story. If you feel comfortable, this space is for you and for all of us who are learning every day that happiness doesn't come from what the world thinks we need, but from listening deeply to what our soul already knows. Until next time, take gentle care of yourself. This is your life, and you, just as you are in the quiet of your own home, are more than enough. Thank you for spending this time with me.